Welcome, all my lovely edge dwellers. Lucca Hallex here, Power Sorcerer. This is another episode of Conversations on the Learning Edge. And I call myself a Power Sorcerer. So all the work that I do, including the entertaining kind of work that I do, which I hope today is, or that you will find it that way, is about helping to empower you. So I call myself a power sorcerer, spelled deliberately misspelled Sourcerer. And today we have with us Kathryn Johnson. And thank you so much for coming and playing in my sandbox today, Kathryn. I really love doing this. I guess everybody can tell by now. And all of these conversations came about because I was on my learning edge. And I always figure if I'm doing something, then probably there's people out there who are doing the same thing and who are thinking about the same thing and making choices about the same thing. So I thought it would be fascinating to go out there in my community and talk to all the people that I would normally talk to over a cup of coffee about exactly these things and capture it on film, or digitally capture it, so that we can share it all around the world and we can find out that really we have more in common than we have that is different, but also that somebody else can look at something in a way that will be fresh and new or evocative or whatever, just by being who we are, because we're all so individual. So that's my little preamble to what we're doing today. So Kathryn, why don't you give us a few words about who you are and what, maybe a little bit about how you met me. And I can say a few words about how I met you, because I'm always interested in the backstory. How did these people come to be together today? It's like the First Nations people always talk about who their ancestors are and where they come from. And I think that's such a lovely tradition. Probably we all did it at one time, and we've kind of lost it and need to come back to it again. So over to you, Kathryn.
Wow, this is going to be so fun today. I can tell. Boy, you're so amazing to be around. Your mind is just, it's like full of opportunity and potential. And I'm so looking forward to our discussion today, Lucca. Thank you for having me. My name is Kathryn Johnson, as Lucca said. I am a best-selling author of the book, The Joy of Obstacles, and I'm an expert at turning joy into obstacles. I also happen to be
the other way
intuitive.
around. The obstacles into joy, right?
The obstacles into joy. Did I say it backwards?
Yeah.
Today must be
but sometimes we can do that by turning it inside out and backwards. So carry on.
My goodness. I'm an expert at turning obstacles into joy. Yes, I focus on joy. So that's why it came out of my mouth first, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm also an intuitive, a medium, and an ancestral clearing practitioner and a life coach. And I've also been a CPA for 20 years. So I have done a lot about helping small businesses improve their processes and their systems and help them save a lot of money. And so now I'm taking that and turning it into helping people improve their lives and their processes and their relationships. So as much as it seems like a totally different thing, I don't think it is, because it's all about improvement. And this is me, and I'm learning to use my intuition more and more every day.
And so we have quite a bit of intersection there.
Yes, you also asked about how we met. Yeah. We met on a recent summit, the New Solution Summit that Diane Lund hosted in March. That was so much fun. There was about 9 of us, and we had a beautiful day. And we also have some mutual friends and interests, and we've met at readings and things like that.
Yeah. So and the other, what I remember about meeting you, I think you were in the book, right, that Diane Lund put together? Were you in the Miracle Mindset book?
I was not in that book. I did a review for it.
I did a review for it too, because I wasn't in it either. I was almost
There
in
you
it.
go.
I was invited to be
That's
in
what
it,
we
and
have in common.
I did not have the time to dedicate to it at that time. But it was that. So one of the things that I did was I did a wrap up for it afterwards. Diane invited me in to do a reading circle for all the people, all the women who had been in that book. And I wasn't sure if I had met you then or if it was later, but I think it was later. But
It was,
we've been circulating in the same group. And I think that a lot of the people who are in the group are talking about the same kinds of things that we are. It's these, what ends up being, I think, hybrid careers. And I talked to a number of people who are really
yeah.
young and they're trying to figure out what they're going to be when they grow up. It's like, when I get out of high school, what am I going to do? And I keep saying to them, the era of studying one thing and staying with that for your whole life, if that ever was really possible, I don't think it is anymore. I think that we're going to have to evolve ourselves, especially since we live much longer now. We're going to have to evolve many times. And I've changed my career. I mean, there are certain themes that run all the way through, but I've changed my career several times already, and you've just told us how you've changed your career several times.
Yeah.
So that tells
Yes.
me that you've been on many learning edges in your life,
Many learning movies. Yes.
and since you're also the champion of joy and obstacles turning into joy, I think that we change careers when we run into obstacles, when it doesn't feel right anymore. Um, and so what kind of in those big change moments in your life, what did those what did the charge behind it, the impetus feel like? Because for some people, like they have an accident or a house fire or something, and it's like all of a sudden all the lights turn on and they think, oh, I have to do things differently. And for other people, it kind of it does this. The Germans have a German a storybook for kids in it, and it talks about this bug that comes out from under the covers, and it walks over the feather covers towards Uncle Fritz's nose, and then bites his nose, and it says Kritze Kratze aus der Matratze, which I think is just this great. You can just see this bug coming Kritze Kratze out of the mattress, right? It's great. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes things in life creep on us, creep up like that on us, and bite us on the nose, and we think, nope, done. So I'm curious, how has this happened for you in your life?
Well, interestingly enough, or maybe not so interestingly, maybe that's the point, that it's always happens this way and we're just not aware of it.
Yeah.
I always had a pull to something greater.
Yeah.
Every single time it was like, this just doesn't feel right in my heart anymore. I was born in Winnipeg and I moved
Mhm.
to British Columbia when I was about 33. And I used to train for competitive track, and I had a lot of track meets in British Columbia, and I loved it out here. And I said to myself, flying over from Vancouver to Nanaimo, someday I'm going to live here, because it was just so beautiful. And I had no idea how or why. I went to train with the national team in Vancouver in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay, but I couldn't get a job. So I decided that I would go home and get my education. And then when I was qualified to have steady employment, then I would come back. And that's what happened. I was working for Deloitte in accounting, and I got a transfer, and I moved out here, and it must have been meant to be, because 3 days before I was scheduled to leave on my cruise, I had no job, no home, no nothing. And within 3 days, I got a job, bought a condo, and got on a cruise and went to Alaska for the first time and had the time of my life and started a new life.
Yeah. The beautiful West Coast, all the way up and all the way back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just knew,
So when
and it took 10 years.
so yeah, and isn't that interesting? Because it took me 10 years to get here. I came here to Vancouver for the first time in 1981 to go to a wedding. 81, 80, 1980. And I came back in 1990. and I had no job and no home. I knew some people that I could stay with. And I'd been working in the corporate world, and I quit and I got in a car and drove all the way across the country. So that was when I saw uh, Saskatchewan for the first time because I hadn't been there before. So we kind of arrived here with a suitcase and a desire to be in a beautiful place. So you did how many years in accounting before you said, no, can't do this anymore?
15 years. 15 years or 20 years, I guess, if you count my time as a student.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually have 3 post-secondary levels of education. I have an arts degree, majored in psychology. Then I went to business college for 2 years. And they said, Kathryn, you're so great at accounting. You should go in to be a formal accountant. So I did that. So at the end of the day, I had 10 years post-secondary education. And I thought, that's it. Got it made. I'm all settled. And I made on the, you work your way up, started making $7-8 an hour. And as an accounting clerk, worked my way up. And finally, in 2009, I got a job that was finally sort of a middle management job.
Yeah.
And well, on my probation, I got a message from Spirit that said, you're going to give it up. You're going to give it all up, And I
Aren't
thought,
they annoying, those messages?
are you kidding? Like, I have been working my whole life, and this is finally my big job, like my career job. And I thought, okay, I don't even want to process that right now, but I will just file that. And sure enough, 2017, I just before then, 2015 or so, I just realized that sitting behind a computer, plugging away, doing my job, no matter how much I loved it, because I did love it, and I still love it, aspects of numbers and things, I had a bigger message. And there was no way in the world I could ever express that bigger message sitting behind a computer working for someone else.
Yeah.
It just wasn't possible. And the universe started to shut doors. Things, I just couldn't make any progress at work. I wasn't being heard. Things were getting more and more difficult. I could just, and I had experienced that before, where when it's time to go, the universe will start shutting doors. And
yeah.
So in 2017, I left. I went to California for 6 months to go find myself, so to speak. And I did a bunch of personal growth courses because that was my second passion at that time. And at the end of the series of retreats, the very last one, a group of 10 people said, Kathryn, you're brilliant. You've got to write a book and be a speaker. And I thought, how the heck am I supposed to do that? I'm an accountant. I don't know how to write a book. I speak. I hate speaking in front of people. Are you kidding? Now I love it. But at that point, it was very terrifying. Yeah. And I thought about it till that Christmas. And in January, I started writing. I found the perfect writing coach, just fell into my lap. By August 2018, I was a best-selling author of The Joy of Obstacles. And I had no clue that would ever be possible for me. And the main decision for deciding to write the book and not go back to work was my gut knew, my intuition knew that if I write this book, it is going to change my life. Do I really want it? And I decided absolutely yes, because one thing I couldn't live with, it would just make me sick, would be at the end of my life, whoever is there to meet me, when they show you what you did, said, good job, but look what you could have had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look what you could have had if you chose to be uncomfortable. And there's no way I could live with that. So I had to write the book. I just had to. It wasn't even an option. It's like I cannot be on this planet playing small. Like if I have a higher purpose
Yeah.
that's been given to me and only me, I better honor
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. How long were
And
you
so here we
uncomfortable for?
it's a process. It's an evolutionary process.
Mm.
I'm still uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable with speaking anymore, but
Yeah.
there's always the next level. I'm always taking my coaching to the next level, my marketing to
Mhm.
the next level, my, doing different videos and bigger stages and bigger
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Um, but the turning point, I guess, when I went from sort of terrified to okay, maybe I can do this,
Mm.
was when I spoke for the first time in 20 October 2018.
Mm.
And I spoke at a conference in Blaine, Washington, which is just across the border from Vancouver. And one of my mentor was in the room, the one who said, Kathryn, you got to write a book. Like a bunch of those people were at this conference, and they all loved it. They all loved my talk, which
Yeah.
was probably 80% channeled. I
Mhm.
had three
Mhm.
key points on an index card and a couple of quotes,
Yeah.
and the rest just came out.
Mhm.
And everybody just was, you could hear a pin drop was one of the quotes
Mm.
from my attendees. And it gets easier every day, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And
What do
it's
you like about it now? Because I mean, it was terrifying before. Now you've done it. You've got a little more comfortable with it. I think you don't ever get completely comfortable with it because you need a little adrenaline to make it spicy. But
that's
what
right.
do you like about it now?
Oh, well, it's just about connection. Really, connecting with other people is
Mhm.
wonderful. I'm realizing how natural it is. It's just like breathing. It feels like breathing to me,
Mhm.
because I know that my intuition is working with me, my guides are working with me, all my helpers, and we're just supposed to do this together. So this is our task.
Yeah.
And they will be with me, and I trust them, and it's all fine.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful partnership
Yeah.
with the spirit world. And I
What
mean,
do you
it's
think was
magical.
the purpose, like in the grand scheme of things, now that you can look back? What do you think was the purpose in having you be in accounting for that long? Like, what is it about numbers that you enjoy so much?
I'm a very practical person.
Mm.
And I think, you know, to succeed in life, we need the practical aspect of life.
Mm.
I have a disability, and I've learned to be very organized, probably better organized than most,
Hmm.
to compensate for some things.
Yeah.
And um, being very organized and understanding the logistics of things and to be efficient with process
Yeah.
is really helpful in the material world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've got that.
Yeah.
And now I've also got my intuition that's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So
Yeah.
having both
Yeah.
of those sides, I get to be a role model for the world
Mm.
that yes, you can be both. You can be a very grounded,
Yeah.
successful, um, educated leader in business or whatever you choose, and an intuitive and a heart-centered, beautiful healer, medium, coach, whatever you
Mhm.
choose. You get to be both. And in fact, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we're meant to be both.
I think so. I think we're better. We're stronger. We're stronger when we're both. We we can create better. I mean, I think about artists who, I mean, if you're a painter, you not only do you have to have the imagination, and but you have to have the courage to put that first thing on the canvas, but you also have to be
Yeah.
able to stretch your canvas. So you got to be handy with a hammer and nails and screws and a saw, and you got to understand how paint works and how colors mix and how paint dries, and you've got to be you got to have that technical knowledge. You've got to understand chemistry. That's all part of being an artist. Also, we think artists, they're flaky people. They're not. They're some of the most incredibly practical people I've ever met.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
So I agree.
when did you know that you were intuitive? Like how you, because you can throw terms. You and I both throw terms around, like spirit said to me, or my guide's this and my guide's that, and people say, well, how do you know? Like, where did those come from? Where did yours, like, how did you discover that? Have you always known?
When did I know? The first experience I had with intuition or the spirit world, I was about 5 or maybe even younger. I used to talk to spirit children.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know I was talking to spirit children, but it was kind of the most unusual thing, because I knew what I was seeing was not real in the sense that you and I can see each other right now. And yet I knew it wasn't my imagination, but I thought it must be, because it isn't like, it's not like mom is standing here talking to me. So I guess my imagination is just playing tricks on me. But it wasn't until in my 30s, when I started training in Europe and developing my intuition, that the medium came to me and just, you used to speak to spirit children when you were younger, didn't you? They used to play with you. And I said, yes. How did you, like, wow, how did you know that? And of course,
Yes.
how did you know? Of course you know, right?
Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
blown away. It's like, yeah, I used to speak with these beautiful spirit children. I'm an only child. So, I was surrounded by many, many spirit children. And
Yeah,
maybe,
you had
I'm
siblings
probably
and
an
playmates.
only child, so that I could speak to the spirit
Yeah.
children. Otherwise, I'd be too busy for them, right? So spirits got it all worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that I had it. You're talking about multiple careers. Well, I have 3 degrees, and I thought I was screwing up. I
Yes.
thought I couldn't
Oh,
make
yeah.
up my mind. I thought I was screwing it all up. Getting 3 degrees. Why can't I just make up my mind, pick something, get paid, and get a life, right?
Yeah.
And now
People say you're
I
changing again.
absolutely need my business degree and my psychology, my arts degree with a major in psychology to do what I do now.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's amazing how there are no mistakes.
No.
There are no mistakes.
No.
And it's all worked out, and you just have to trust.
Yeah.
And the tricky thing is, how do you tell your intuition from things that are not your intuition? Because sometimes we want things to be a certain way, but that's not really right. And then other times people around you are maybe influencing you a certain way, and you think, well, that makes a lot of sense.
That has merit. That argument has merit.
You're not sure that's right either. And how do you tell the difference? So my biggest challenge right now is to integrate, like, when do I use sort of common sense from business, and when do I use my intuitive sense? Because my intuitive sense, I find, is it's always right. It's always right.
Yeah.
The key is I don't always hear it right. So sometimes what I interpret is not the truth, but my intuition itself is always accurate. It must be. It's coming from a higher source.
Yeah.
So that's my growing edge
Yeah.
right now.
So it's the integrating of that
Yeah.
voice into what you're doing next. What do you do with the fear when you're on that? Because I find that growing edge for me, I'm just about to jump off the edge of the continent and head over to Europe, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but that part of me does. But this part of me is like, ah. What do you do with? I used to teach public speaking, and I used to say to people, "You're never going to make all the butterflies in your stomach go away. What you want to do is get them all flying in the same direction." It's
That's a great way of putting it.
because you're going to have them. The flutters are there, right? It makes me feel alive, um, and I don't like feeling kind of. That's. I mean, peace is different than like a dial tone. Just. But living on that edge means you've got to have a way to deal with the kind of energy.
Yes. Well,
What do you
I
do with it?
sometimes what I do is I sort of live a day with the decision one way,
Yeah.
and as if I made the decision in a certain way, and then I live the next day the opposite way.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
in my mind, what feels better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm dealing with a situation right now about, continuing with a certain group that I'm in or not.
Hmm.
And I'm sure I have made my decision. I'll say that the decision I have made is completely not a logical one.
Hmm. Or doesn't
It's
look
not
logical from this vantage point.
from this vantage point. It doesn't make exactly.
Yeah.
But I know what the right one is. I absolutely know.
Yeah.
And it's because the idea of going the other way feels heavy
Hmm.
and restrictive and just not, it doesn't make my heart sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the idea of going the way my intuition is guiding me, I feel lighter, I feel happier, I feel more free to be me. And once I let go, and once I say, okay, I trust, I'm available, here I am, spirit, they'll open the door. They'll open
Yeah.
the door. And even, I would say that sometimes we do the practical thing or the easier thing. But, we're holding ourselves back because everything is relative. People are maybe afraid to change a job because they're well paid. Maybe if they change jobs, maybe they'll make twice as much money with less time.
Yeah.
I know people who've done that. I know people who absolutely hated their job. They left, they found a better job with less stress and more pay.
Yeah. And if
The
you
universe
get to
could
work
bring us
fewer
into
hours, in a way, even if you get the same pay, if you're working fewer hours, you're getting paid more,
That's right.
right? And
That's
then
right.
you've got free time to be able to do other things that you couldn't do before when you couldn't let go of that particular job or endeavor of whatever kind, because it would there's this whole theory, or not theory, but concern around security. And
Yeah.
I encounter it a lot when I'm working with people, as a big generality, a lot of the time for men, because they feel like they're the primary breadwinner in their family and there's all these people depending on them. And a lot of the time from women, because they feel like there's this sense that they could be left without anything, that security is important, because otherwise I call it the bag lady syndrome, that they may end up living on a park bench with nothing but a bag. And it's kind of this nebulous fear out here, but it drives us a lot. And when we're in those situations where we're assessing risk, essentially we're assessing risk. it's such an interesting thing to me, risk, because it's not, it's like beauty, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Mhm.
People can tell
You-
us, people say to me, my God, how do you live the way you, because I've been self-employed since 1990. And
Wow.
it was, I wasn't planning on doing that. I just couldn't find work that was full time. And then I found what I really wanted to be doing and started doing that. And then I found something else and made it hybrid. So I did a couple of days a week doing this, and I did a few more doing that. And but that people saw it as being incredibly risky. Now, fortunately, I didn't have any little people in the world or a partner who was dependent on my income. So I was risking, but I was risking my life, not anybody else's life. But there were a lot of people who were really worried about me. I didn't, I felt like I couldn't do it any other way. So then I had the risk. And then what comes with the risk, and you just mentioned it, is trust.
Yes.
Like what is it that we're trusting? Because you can trust your own abilities. Like I always said, well, if it doesn't work, I can always go back to the corporate world. Turned out then that I couldn't go back to the corporate world anymore because life, the universe with a capital U, kept, as you said,
Mhm.
closing doors.
Closing
I
the
couldn't
doors.
even get an interview to get back into the corporate world, even though I was in a field where having been out of it for many years wouldn't affect my ability to slide back in and do what I was applying to do. But but it was like then you have to go with trust. You have to.
I've had the same experience. I've left my job in 2017. I haven't had a single interview
Yeah.
for accounting. I haven't applied for that many jobs, but I haven't even found many jobs to apply for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's just like the universe isn't showing me that way.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I have to trust. I
Yeah.
have to trust.
Yeah.
I have no choice.
So you must
Because
have a unique sense of risk. Like what is risk to you? What do you consider to be a risky proposition?
Well, that's very interesting because first of all, I just like to say that there's no avoiding risk. It's a matter of which risk are you going to take because everything has an opportunity cost. If you choose one,
Yeah.
that's incompatible with another path, so there's a risk of letting that go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is risky to me? Physical danger is a risk that I
Yeah.
think of.
Yeah.
Um, Financial danger, like things that are very practical. It's a practical world. We need to be safe. We need to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
roof over our head and food in our
Yeah.
stomach
Yeah. Yeah.
and clothes on our back.
Yeah.
Um, there's also a risk of compromising our values. And when we start to do that, we're in big trouble. Because that's when the universe we start to get little bumps in the road and things don't go so smoothly and it's like a little nudge that says maybe you don't want to be over here because these people aren't really in alignment with what you're doing and things are just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And I have a mentor. The most important thing she's ever taught me in my mind after 6 months with her was when you do what's right for you, you automatically do what's right for everyone else. When you don't do what's right for you,
Mm.
you automatically don't do what's right for everybody else. So if you don't do what's in your heart, you're hurting everybody around you. It's guaranteed every single time. Believe me, I've tested it, unfortunately,
It's
and every
it's kind of
time
like
it's
living a
like,
lie, right? I mean, it's a form of
yeah,
lie because
yeah,
it's saying you're presenting yourself as you, but that's not the authentic you.
that's right.
So you're lying. And I think that we have, as humans on this planet, we have lie detectors. We we know something's not right. We may not know it's a lie necessarily right in that moment, but something, yeah, as you
Mhm.
said, something feels awkward.
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
feel
And
awkward? Like where do you get that in you? Because if it's because we're talking in a way about uh, a physical perception and also an emotional perception, an energetic perception. How do you pick it up?
usually it's in my chest and in my gut. I just
Yeah,
things feel heavy. I don't
yeah,
feel happy.
yeah,
Weight, literally a weight on my shoulders.
yeah, yeah,
Literally. So
yeah,
this whole upper body is just not
yeah,
not happy.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes I think, well, maybe I'll just give it a while because maybe it's just like a new thing and maybe it's uncomfortable because it's
yeah,
new.
yeah.
And sometimes it changes, but most often, no,
No, yeah.
it
It's so
doesn't
interesting,
really.
isn't it?
It gets better, but it doesn't fit the bill.
There are advantages to getting older, and one of them is perspective. I can look back at my life and I can say, yeah, I felt that there, and I felt it there, and I felt it there. And none of those times did it turn out to be a good idea to sit in that energy. So maybe I'm not saying that's true for everybody in the world. I'm just saying for me, it's not good to sit in energy when it feels like that.
That's right. It's just there's a heaviness to things.
Yeah, yeah. And I just like it comes out of my solar plexus. It's like,
Yeah, for me, it's a heaviness. Some other people, they might feel differently. They might,
yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah,
tightness some other
yeah,
place, but
yeah. Now, do you have to turn things into an opportunity, or into joy, or or does it evolve that way if you go with it? Or any permutation of that, like it's not an either or proposition.
what do you mean by turn it into joy?
Well, if we look at obstacles and turning
Yeah.
obstacles into joy, like I don't think you go in there like a mechanic and work on it. Um,
Oh, no, I understand.
right?
Okay, no, no, exactly. It's a matter of perspective,
Yeah.
and I think there's a difference between having joy
Mm,
and having fun every single moment when you're in the weeds of life, so to
yes.
speak.
Yeah.
um the joy, what I tell people is the joy is on the other side, because often you've made a connection you wouldn't have otherwise made.
Mm,
Obstacles are obstacles because the answer is not apparent to us, so
mm,
we need to look outside of ourselves in some way,
mm,
either connect with someone else to help us, read a book, go on the internet, make a phone call,
mm,
different
mm,
things. And through those connections we've grown, the people helping us have grown, wisdom is shared, conversations are had, everybody grows, everybody wins, the world is a better place, all because you decided to embrace your obstacle instead of run from it.
yeah.
So that's what my mission is, to teach people.
Yeah.
And I mean, the ripples are just endless and
Mm,
infinite.
mm,
There's no
mm.
way you could ever know. Wayne Dyer wrote in his book one time, he said, a smile can stop a murder.
I think so. I've heard him
Yeah.
say that. Yeah. It's not in person. I never saw Wayne Dyer in person, but I've seen him say that in videos. Um, it's this I use my intuition to navigate my life. And I think I've been using it ever since I was a child, but I didn't know what it was. I remember thinking about it when I was about maybe 6 or 7. I remember
Mhm.
feeling, sitting up straight and feeling like I had a string that went from my sits bones all the way
Mhm.
up my spine and through the top of my head and up there somewhere up. And that I could go ding ding and tug it, and it would center me.
Interesting.
And I had that as a sort of a concept and as a feeling in my body, but I don't remember at that age applying it to anything. So I don't remember. I remember where I was sitting, the house I was in, what time of day it was, the sun coming in the windows, and I remember explaining it. And I don't know if I was explaining it to myself or if my mother was in the room and I was explaining it to her. But I call it my purpose string.
Oh, that's neat.
And you can go tick, tick with it and it goes. It's there used to be a commercial on television for a product called Robaxoset, and there's an articulated puppet type person who's all bent over and has pins stuck in their back because they've got back pain, and then you take this drug and then it kind of then he becomes the loose puppet, right? And he can
Right.
walk again and everything's great. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in the painkiller. What I was interested in is what happens when you stick pins into yourself by doing something that's out of alignment for you. And it could be physical, it could be that you're sitting in a chair that's bad for your posture. However, a lot of the time it's because you're doing something that doesn't line up with the experiment that is this life for you as a soul. So if I look at it as an experiment, not every experiment that you do works, but you have a hypothesis. Like scientists, biologists, whatever, they have a researcher has a hypothesis, and then they do an experiment and they put all these controls in place, right? So that they eliminate the variables and then they try it. And if they don't get the result that they were expecting, or that sometimes they do, sometimes they get the result because they're trying to eliminate something. But when they get that result, if it always does something for them. It at least says not that way. And I think that when we have pain or obstacles in our life, it's us saying, no, not that way. No, not that way. And I've called that the Jenga block view of life. Because there's a game that kids play, adults play it too. There's a restaurant on Granville Island that has the big version of it. So they have in the Jenga game, there's wooden blocks that are about that long, and they're maybe about an inch square, and you pile them 3 in this direction and 3 in this direction. You make a tower out of them, and then you tap them on the end to see which one is not weight bearing that you can pull out and very gently lay on the top. And the game is you just play the game like that until somebody knocks the tower over, right? But to figure out which one of those pieces of wood, dowel, whatever, that you can take out, you got to test them, and you just nudge them a little bit. And if you do it right, you just move the ones that move. You take the ones out that move. And I think that in life, there are times when we tap something and it doesn't move, but we think that's the right one. So, and we've got all this chatter back here that says, do it that way, do it that way. And so we force it and the tower falls down. Now, that's not the end of the world, but it also isn't necessarily getting us where we want to go unless we needed to find out not that way. So I don't think, so the obstacles, because you were, I think, alluding to this, that obstacles are not terrible, they're just information.
That's right.
Right?
They're information and they're lessons to help us grow. We need our obstacles.
Yeah.
I don't think the idea is to get through life without obstacles.
No, I don't think so either. And I also think that there isn't some big nebulous they out there that's doing this. I see myself as being an autonomous, self-directed spirit that is here for a purpose. And some of us, I think, find our purpose through service. and some of us find our purpose through invention, and some of us do it through protecting things, or like we have all different kinds of things, and I think that we're playing with them to expand our spiritual self, our repertoire, our I've done that and I loved it, or I'd like to try that, or I'd like to help this person or this purpose on the planet right now, or and there's as many of those as there are us.
Yeah.
So are you, as you move forward now, because you said that,
Yeah.
that to paraphrase, that your learning edge right now is about taking your intuition and what you do with your intuition, both with yourself and with the people that with whom you work, that you're trying to find the melding, the dance step with that part of you that is practical and, in my terminology, logical, reasonable, and rational.
Yeah.
And so, where do you see yourself? What on what frontier do you see yourself doing that right at this moment?
What method?
Yeah, well, or where in your life? Like, where are you? I feel like it's professional. You're pushing it professionally, but does it only stay in
Yes.
the professional box? Will it
No, I
just
think
stay in the professional box?
I think it's you know, all areas of life, mainly professional right now, because
Yeah,
that's an area of life that is expanding at
yeah,
probably the fastest rate.
yeah, yeah.
So that's where it's showing up the most. But I don't think, I mean, no matter what we're doing, we take ourselves with us.
Mm.
So I don't think you can separate who you are depending on what aspect of life you're living, whether it's your personal life, your professional life, your relationships,
Mm.
your intuitive spiritual life. Like it's all one thing.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah.
shows up. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, even relationships, you know, there's some interesting things happening in relationships. Relationships are one of our most wonderful learning experiences through life.
Mm.
And I have a friend who does tarot cards, and she says, you know, tarot readings can be bang on,
Mm.
except relationships, sometimes they're not, it doesn't work out.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot more layers to relationships than we realize.
Yeah.
And that's why maybe the cards have difficulty interpreting our path for us.
Mm.
That was her opinion.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah. Oh, it's
also
what she's
noticed that,
observed
you
in
know,
working with cards, right?
in many years of working with tarot cards, I would say
Yeah.
it's the same for me. Yeah, the practical
Yeah.
stuff usually
Yeah.
comes through, no question. The relationship stuff, it looks like it's going one way and then it moves.
Yeah.
And then it moves again. And
Yeah.
then it's like,
Yeah.
wow. So it's really interesting. Often with relationships, again, you talked about safety and risk, right? We want to be very safe in our relationships. It's important.
Mm.
You're using your intuition, which is connected to your heart.
Mhm.
Often we said, you know, it tells you to do the opposite, which is not always logical, reasonable, and rational.
Mhm.
And yet your heart is your guide in a relationship.
Yeah.
Probably more than the practical. So you have this
Mm.
need for safety versus your heart.
Mm.
And it's a really tricky balance sometimes. I think particularly if you're an intuitive person, because you've sort of stepped up and say, okay, I want to use my intuition this time around.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, you
Yeah.
asked for it. Here you go.
In a culture that largely at the moment doesn't value it, right? So it's not given credibility. So you're asked to make lists of pros and cons, but if I make a list of pros and cons, on the con side could be my gut's telling me not to do it, and that can outweigh a really long list of pros on the other side of the page.
Exactly.
But that when you go into a business making decision meeting in a corporate environment, it doesn't feel right, doesn't get as much weight. And I think it's starting to change, because I'm finding that as I do marketing now, that the word intuition has been sort of co-opted. It's like I call it the new green, right? They say, like, Apple talks about their products being intuitive, and on some level they are. However, that's not the kind of intuition we're talking about.
No.
And it's but I think the fact that we're using that word and making it more acceptable in everyday language is taking some of the fear out of it. I think it's mysterious, and it's sort of magical, and I don't want it to lose that. But also, it doesn't mean because it's mysterious and magical that it isn't reliable. And when I look at the relationship stuff, one of the things that I've noticed in doing this for over 30 years is that um, we all have free will. And we have free will in relationship, and we are more governed by our hearts and emotions and intuition than we realize we are, and we get scared. Gabor Mate talks about having if you have an over the top reaction to something, and people say, "Oh, don't be so sensitive," but it happens when somebody sticks their finger in an unhealed emotional wound, unexamined, unhealed emotional wound. And I think that this is one of the things that happens when we use our free will to suddenly change our minds on a relationship track, like you were just mentioning. Then we do that sort of hairpin right turn and disappear into the dust, because somebody's hit something that we feel scared about and don't know how to articulate and don't feel supported to deal with. So the reaction is to pull out. And if you're the other person in the relationship, you may not know what makes that person react that way. You may not yet know them well enough, or they may not have shown that to you, or you may only have that information on an intuitive level, so you can't quote unquote prove it, right? But if we all have free will, then not only do I have free will, but everybody in my life has free will. So I may have made an agreement with the person to, meet under the clock or whatever. Somebody picking things up from my patio outside. You can see them walking in the background. But we rely on them not to change their minds. And if they change their mind, or if somebody in their life changes their mind, then and they can't make it, or they can't stay, or they have to make a choice that supports something else for a while, then it makes it so the probability, I think we get partly what we get when we read something like cards, is the probability of something.
Yes.
The opportunity, perhaps we should say, and then people can take advantage of that opportunity or not. So what's the opportunity that you're taking advantage of these days?
Freedom. Freedom to get up in the morning and spend the day how I want to spend the day, serving, being of service to my clients, connecting with myself, and just learning to trust my intuition, doing some personal healing, which has been amazing. I think, if you agreed to have a purpose, that is to be a role model and a coach and a spiritual teacher for many,
Yeah.
you need to do your own healing. So I've been doing that. I also work with a trainer. My main focus right now is to build my coaching business. So I work with entrepreneurs and helping them with their processes, but I also do life coaching for anybody looking for a freer, fuller life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've lived risk, and you've lived change, and you've lived challenge, and you've used your intuition to navigate through all of that, but you've also used the really practical, logical, reasonable, rational, numerical side of yourself at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I
I
think so.
see you, from what I've seen of you in the time that I've known you, reaching out to your community for the support and knowledge and experience of other people to use what they do best to help you in what you're doing best. So it's
Yeah,
yes,
it's been
yeah,
a beautiful partnership.
yeah, and it ain't over yet,
No,
right?
we're near finished. We're
Yeah,
always learning.
yeah. So if people would like to reach you, if they would like to have conversation with you, if they would like to book your time, if they'd like to find out about your book, how do they reach you?
They can reach me on my website, which is inspiredbykathryn.com. Kathryn is Kathryn, inspiredbykathryn.com. I will also leave a lead magnet for your people. It's called 5 Mistakes People Make When Faced with the Obstacles. I'll leave it's a free PDF.
Fantastic. So I'll put the link to that in the right underneath this video, so that when they get to the end of it and they're curious about finding out more, they can just click on that and go and have a look and see what they find and see how that tickles, perhaps tickles, since you and I are both intuitive and experienced intuitive, that maybe that will tickle their intuition or tickle them to use it even more and trust it even more.
I have coaching services as well as intuitive services. So
yeah.
if you'd like to connect with me in any way, inspiredbykathryn.com.
Fantastic. And I assume that if they go to your website, then they can find all of your social media connections, and they would be able to find the link to get your book, and all of that was all in the hub of your website.
Absolutely. I have a store page. There's also a menu at the top.
Yeah. Fantastic.
It's all there.
Cool. Thank you for coming and hanging out, as I said at the beginning, in my sandbox for an hour. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I feel like I've learned a few more things about you that I didn't know before. I learned certain things. If I do a reading for somebody, I learn certain things about them, but then the rest is all a big blank, because I'm just functioning in my little channel for what that period of time that I have with you. So then I like to come back afterwards and open it up, and I love conversation. To me, conversation is manna from heaven. It's how we rub up against each other. It's how we create creative friction. It's how we support one another and share ideas and experiment and inspire. And so thank you for coming and joining me in mine. And I look forward to connecting with you further. This will be I will put it up as a vlog in my She Who Knows vlogs on my website. That's where it will be housed. And I look forward to seeing you again, and to seeing all of you who are listening and watching right now. I look forward to seeing you when I have my next conversation with my next encounter on the Learning Edge.
It was wonderful.